Well, sorry, folks, I didn't click it properly, and streaming was not online, but it is online now. I have to do a bit of a swivel around here. You see, I've got three computers. One of them, the streaming one, is behind me, and I really should look to see on my computer that's in front of me that it says LIVE. It didn't say LIVE, so it does now. And I'm sorry, but you've all just missed out on the news, such as it is. But here's David with the weather, and that's why we're here anyway.
Well, things happen, you know. You're always doing a good job on this news. I find it pretty interesting. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. And 500 millibar is where we usually start. We find a ridge just to the south of Tonga, and we have a left-leaning short-wave trough over the Tasman. This is in the upper Tasman, and to the south of that is a ridge. Now, to the east of the Tongan Ridge that I just mentioned, another shortwave trough rides along, and that's supporting the subtropical depression that we've been talking about for almost a week now. That was the one that a lot of you who have left were concerned about having an effect on the passage to New Zealand. And we had mentioned that no, it's not going to have a direct relationship, and it's not. So by lunch, that low center is going to be near 27 and 165 west. So you can see that it's traversed quite a bit to the east. And it has an occluded front that arcs north and then west, pictured as sort of a bow looking affair. So it's an occluded front. It goes over Niue, then New Potatoes, Nui Tupatapu. Then it swoops back down to Anoi, Fiji, and northern Vanuatu. And well, when it gets to the Niue area, it actually turns into a trough. So a frontal band prior to that, but then a trough once it gets up to the Niue area. And it's helped along with north-northeast winds from the equator to about 17 south. So if you were looking at your grids, you would see these winds coming in from the north-northeast. Very humid, very warm. And they'll be crashing into southeast winds from the high that we've got here near New Zealand, not the high to the south, in other words. And that air flow is of different density. So this is the high that straddles New Zealand with multiple centers. And one of them is about 1029 millibars, so it's pretty strong. Now tomorrow, Wednesday, the high remains over New Zealand, pretty strong still. In fact, it gets a little stronger, roughly 1030 millibar central pressure. Now, the subtropical depression that we just talked about, that falls apart. Actually, it leaves multiple centers. All of them are weak. There's about three of them. The pressures vary between 1012 to 1015 millibar. No closed isobars, so they amount to simply polar dips, and they're located between 150 and 160 west. So west of French Polynesia and getting over toward the Cooks. Now by Thursday, our high center shifts to the east, and it's going to lie over the Chathams at that point. But it will remain strong at 1030 millibar, 1030. So that is definitely going to have an effect on weather to the north. Now, winds for those of you that are underway, if you're between 30 south and 34 south, we're looking at east-southeast to southeast about 10 to 15. Now, this date is from a current, or this data rather, is from a current microwave pass that I got this morning, pretty early, and it is quite accurate. So that is almost precisely what the winds are between those two latitude bands. Now, as you close with North Cape, or close with New Zealand, in other words, you can expect south to southwest winds, and then westerlies as you slide down the east coast heading to whichever destination is on tap. Those trying for Picton, I'm afraid, are looking at southerlies. They're a little strong at the moment up near the Capes, but that's because of the land effect, Cape effect. But as you get going a little bit further south, they'll get lighter, probably about 10 to 15 knots. But unfortunately, on the nose. So those of you still on passage now between 25 south and 27, you'll be looking at easterlies about 15 to 20. And tomorrow, they'll be about 20 knots. And on Thursday, we're looking at 25 to 30 knots. And these strong winds are going to continue from 27 south to probably 33 south. Then as you near New Zealand, they're going to ease to east about 20. And that'll be the same thing for the Saturday time frame. Now, the next bit of bother for New Zealand is about Monday, that's the 19th, where two highs actually come together again over New Zealand, just like they did before. And that will create a trough between the two. So you can expect convective activity then, and of course squally weather associated with that as well. Now, up in the tropics, shifting location now, the tropical disturbance that I mentioned yesterday now has a number. TD, Tropical Depression, 02 Foxtrot, and it's just east of the Solomons. Now, from this little depression, a trough runs, and that's the one that is mostly bothering Vanuatu. We sort of have two troughs that are bothering Vanuatu. The second one is coming from this depression. Now, we have another trough that's running over Fiji, and that one goes north to Rotuma. Then it swings east to Tokelau and on to the northern Cooks. Now, the first trough that I mentioned when we began the broadcast that is emanating from the subtropical low, that does join up with this last trough that I mentioned. So in summary, really, there is quite a bit of activity in the islands and in the deep tropics. Now, back to the subtropics again, I forgot to mention New Zealand's broken frontal band. If you'll remember, we had said that when it hits New Zealand, which it did a few days ago, it's going to disassociate itself from the main band and the associated low, and it did do that. So that's what's left is still there, and it's running up toward Norfolk Island. If you were to look at it on satellite imagery, it's pretty large in area. So those of you that are coming in from that direction are going to be encountering this massive cloud, showers, and squally weather. Now, if there are any radio relays for yachts that are nearing New Zealand and around this mess, and you need more information, just try to get in touch with us through the relays, but do it when I'm done. So briefly though, winds in the New Zealand area are going to be southeast, tending east as we near the Thursday time frame. Over to Tonga now, back up to the islands, where, as we mentioned, the trough lies over the kingdom, and we could expect cloud and showers today, sometimes pretty heavy. Tomorrow, much the same, maybe a little bit lighter. Earlier reports for Vavau indicate periods of showers and rain, and the barometer was 1011. The Hapai's east 5 knots, scattered to broken there, barometer also 1011. And Tongatapu, a little bit further south, south-southeast 5 knots, scattered cloud, and the barometer 1013. And by lunch, the wind should be southeast about 10 to 15. Tomorrow, I'm thinking east to east-southeast in the 15-knot range, but watch out for Thursday. I think the weather's going to pack up at that point, and I would expect converging winds. I believe northwest will be clashing with northeast, so that's going to create a little bit of havoc for you in Tonga. Fiji, our trough lies over the country, bringing, well, not just occasional, but heavy rain. A secondary trough is expected to move in a little bit later today. We talked about that trough. As a result, a heavy rain alert is in force for much of Fiji. This is coming from Fiji Met. This now has the potential for flooding in the low-lying areas, so be quite wary if you're going ashore. These tropical troughs tend to spawn thunderstorms now this time of the year, so watch out for the high gusts that are involved with these and the wind shifts. Not a good idea to be anchored too close to your neighbor. Now, as if this wasn't enough, we also have a strong wind warning from Fiji Met. That's also in force, so expect southeast to northeast winds, 20 to 25 knots, and the winds will become dominant from the northeast a little bit later today, and tomorrow, northeast 20 to 25. So we've got a couple of days of nice fresh winds for you, in addition to trough conditions. Vanuatu doesn't escape this massive area of convective activity, with the trough running north-south over the country. Plenty of rain-bearing cloud, starting actually from the Solomons down to the Torres and Banks, and then extending south all the way down to Anisham. The winds are quite classic. If you were to draw a line north-south through the center of Vanuatu, now I know Vanuatu doesn't go exactly north-south, but you know what I mean, north-south. To the east of this line, by lunch, we're looking at north-northeast winds in about the 15-knot range, but to the west of the line, southeast winds getting up to about 20 knots. So that's an excellent example of wind convergence, and that's going to be supporting the trough activity, actually the double trough that we've got there. Tomorrow, mostly southerlies, I think, for the chain, and just to the east, I believe we'll see cyclonic rotation, and that is going to be from our friendly tropical depression that we just talked about. Over to NewCal, finally, an active trough band is evident early this morning, sitting over the country. Cloud within the band is moving northwest to southeast. Winds in our lagoon area by lunch, we're looking at southeast 15 to 20, picking up to a solid 20 a little bit later. Tomorrow you could expect southeast in the 15-knot range and stronger north of Noumea. So the actuals this morning, Amity Light blowing pretty good out there, east 22, the Isle of Pines lighter at southeast 9 knots. The Loyalties, the average there southeast about 14. Noumea, some wind, east 21, and if you're in the Noumea area or Bay or Feeling-Knot, looking at barometer 1011.4. That's the barometer reading this morning. And that's all I've got. Any questions, comments, or whatever, come now, and I'll pass you over to the chief.
Yeah, and I see that Eye Candy is now in their pit, in the mud, probably because it's drizzling. And I asked if Y2K was still in Tonga. I don't think we've got anyone left in Tonga. And we have got a little message from Citrus Tart, so they're still there. And you've got those people. Did you comment on the people going north into that terrible weather?
No.
No, you didn't. Well, you won't be going north. If you have a look at your satellite picture, the people that are in Fiji wanting to go north, you'd have to be out of your heads to go north at the moment if you looked at what's above you there. So just enjoy Fiji a little bit longer and try and wait for all that stuff to settle itself down. What is causing all of that mess up there anyway? I'll pass the microphone.
Well, we have to remember it's a change of seasons now. It's tropical cyclone weather, and we've got quite a bit of wind coming down from the equator. The big high to the east, it's sending wind along the equator and about 5 south, and that wind then bears to the left. It goes polar, and it's bringing with it very, very moist and hot air. and that's clashing with the highs that we have to the south. So we've got two different density air masses, and that's the recipe for the convective activity. And that's summertime for you. So this can be expected now for the rest of the summer up there. So you really need to keep a sharp eye for the weather, and just be careful.
All right, and because I didn't get that streaming turned on, I'm going to stop broadcasting on the radio and just fill them in with what happened before I turned it on at 7 o'clock. But if you are tuning in tomorrow, we will start the weather on the hour and start up everything else at least by 10:02. We don't have a lot of people out there now, so we'll just try and tailor what we've got to those that we know where you are. Are there any questions for David? Oh, Trigger, forgot about you. I've got to add you to my list as well. Trigger, go ahead.
I see anything in the future, but what often years ago,
Yeah, everyone's complaining about the conflicting models at the moment. There's a few of you there. Just Jane, Scoots, Trigger, Citrus Tark, Valak. We are certainly looking. Did you want to make, David, any comments now? He'll make a comment anyway.
Well, we haven't had any real requests about that other than just now from you. But I'll take a look.
Yes, you have
today. Yeah, well, we've had a few
people
inquiries,
are wanting.
but wishful thinking, basically, what it is. And as you know, we like to have you make a plan and we comment, but I understand that you'd like a little bit more input than that. So what I'll do tonight or tomorrow night, I'll just keep looking and see if there's something that's reasonable. There's always going to be a window. You'll find one to get down south. Don't worry about that. It's just a matter of how comfortable it's going to be, what you're willing to endure, if you will. Most of the highs that are coming through, as an example, there's a high now that is south of Perth, and it's at 1035. It's a monster. I never like those because, as you know, we always worry about the northwest corner of these things spawning a depression and spoiling the passage to the south. But we'll see what happens when it crosses the Bight and gets into the Tasman. So I'll be looking at that. Those highs that you see, when I started to do a lot of this long range look, if you will, I used to look very carefully, thinking that these highs will eventually get to the Tasman and the New Zealand area, and most of the time they really don't. What tends to happen, and this is just from experience, I doubt you'll read this anywhere, but they get to about the Perth area, not quite to the Perth area, and then they sort of hang about, and then they do what I call spawning, for lack of a better word. And what happens is the main part of it stays where it's at, and then we get little baby forms in the Bight area, and that one grows just almost as if the child's getting bigger. And that's the one then that heads to the east. So I usually wait until I see the highs forming or in the Bight itself, and then I start to track them to see how fast they're going. And I do look at the blocking forecasts as well to see what the models are thinking about in terms of future blocks, because they play a big role as well. So anyhow, make a long story short, I guess, we'll look, and I'll let you know if I see anything interesting. Then it's up to you to do some planning from that point. So we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, David. We're looking at it seriously, but it keeps on changing, so maybe you have something better than I can. Thank you very much. We'll be listening to it.
Alrighty, so we know there's about half a dozen of you there that are keen to sort of move south, and several of you are pretty experienced at that particular trip, so you'll know what to look for. All right, is there anybody else? No, and good morning to Scoots up there as well. I am going to stop broadcasting on the radio now, and I'm just going to go through a bit of the news of the boats on the way and the news of the world in case anyone's remotely interested, because I didn't get the streaming turned on. So cheers everybody that is listening on radio. We will be back again tomorrow morning. We'll start I'm here early, but we'll start the weather on the hour. Because I think radio propagation is good then, although we've just had perfect copy on Chris, so who knows. Anyway, if anybody else is around, the ham net is on at 2100 UTC. I'm net controller today, so I'll be back on the radio, and other than that, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers, everybody. All right, and now back to streaming. I'm sorry about that, folks. I did click it, but boy, it needs a very definite double click. So just to let you know, there's quite a few people arriving in Opua today. Anahata still doesn't have an engine, but he's down at 3.5 and 174, so he's in the Bay of Islands and doing quite well. As Four Seasons are down at 35, they're way out to the west. And they've got southeast 22 because they're heading down to Picton. A little bit stronger than expected, but that's just the effect around the top there, and it will slowly drop off a bit as they go south. They've got a 1.5 metre southeast swell. Andiamo is down at 34. They've got 11 knots of southeast wind. They'll be going in today, as will Amazing Grace down a bit further. Gone with the Wind. Now here's an interesting one because they are up there at, turn that noise off. Gone with the Wind are up. They left South Minerva or North Minerva, one of the two, ripping along in their 52-foot catamaran. They have set 8 to 9 knots of boat speed and easterly 15. Couldn't be better really for a catamaran. The conditions. Their course is, what is their course? 208. So yeah, easterly 15. So they're very, very happy with those conditions. So there you have it. It's generally pretty decent out there. Haven't heard from anybody going to Australia, but it's pretty good between the islands and Australia as well. So moving on to the news. Fiji, of course, for those that are there will know this, but they have elections tomorrow. And evidently now, as of midnight, after they had a big debate between the two coup leaders, I will call them, Mr. Bainimarama and Mr. Rambuka. They had a big debate on Sunday night, and post that, you are now meant to be sitting quietly digesting the facts and working out what you're going to do. And if you publish anything, put any advertising up, even talk on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you will be fined or sent to jail. So there, I was allowed to tell you this because they didn't say anything about saying anything on SSP. So that big election is tomorrow. They've already had elections in some of the outer islands, and so they will be all gathered together, hopefully with less strife than they had in the midterms in America, because they're still counting Florida and Arizona because the voting is quite tight there. Talking about America, there's been enormous fires, as you probably have heard. Down in Malibu, quite a few of the film stars have lost homes. Neil Young, I don't know some of these modern stars, but I did know Neil Young, and I had a picture of him. Of course, she's looking more ancient than you are, David. Neil Young, singer-songwriter, he was one of several Hollywood stars that lost his home in the Malibu fires, but the ones further north, just amazing weather conditions. They have had not a drop of rain since October. And evidently up there in places around Paradise, you know, they've got these sort of gullies in the Sierra Nevadas, and the humidity dropped from 35% down to single digits in 1 hour. So it just, everything flared incredibly. Back home here in New Zealand, the AC/DC drummer, Phil Rudd, he's quite a famous person because he does get into trouble every now and again, although I think he's been very peaceful lately. But anyway, he's lived in Tauranga for 9 years, and he is selling his house on the water. It's sort of a double apartment type thing. He's downsizing. So maybe he settled on just one woman. I don't know. Anyway, if you've got $4.6 million to spare, and you probably have to do a bit of clean-up because it has been a home of rather a lot of drug use. But anyway, he's downsizing, and his motor cars are not there. It's a pity he doesn't throw in one of those. That would be an incentive. He has those in a hangar out at the airport. He has the most amazing collection of multi-million-dollar motor vehicles, absolutely gorgeous-looking things. He had his boat at Bridge Marina when we were, well, he probably still has it at Powerboat, and he used to come in these things that look like spacecraft and just leave them in the car park and trot out to his powerboat. All right, talking about boaties in the Auckland area, do be careful when you come because they are expressing concern about boating accidents. Evidently, there's been a major surge in boaters in Auckland. 50% now have less than 5 years boating experience. Less than 50%. They know that there's been a huge amount of growth in boating because of the trailers that have to be registered. You still don't have to register your boat in New Zealand. There's no licensing whatsoever, the last bastion of freedom here. But your trailer, because it goes on the road, has to be registered, and evidently there's been a massive surge in that, which they have to have trailer sailors because there's absolutely no space left in marinas in Auckland. And that's going to get worse, evidently, as the next America's Cup comes around. They reckon in Auckland that if they started the approval process for 150 new berths, they would be sold out and there'd still be a waiting list. Yesterday was the 11th of the 11th in many parts of the world, and Alibaba, that's the Chinese online shopping outfit, they have this big Singles Day. It's a sort of an event that they've given a lot of publicity to. It's a big sales event. People that are on Alibaba selling their goods obviously reduce them a bit, I suppose, to give incentive. $30.8 billion of sales. That's the record for the Singles Day on Alibaba. And miraculously, New Zealand was the 9th biggest country for sales. A lot of the local people sold their products there, even Fonterra. So there you have it. A good place to sell your products. And last but not least, they have actually found the person in Australia who spiked a lot of strawberries with needles. That was a major and expensive problem for the Australian supermarkets and providers of strawberries. It was a Vietnamese farm worker, an older lady actually, has been arrested. She started it. There were a lot of copycats, of course, throughout the rest of Australia. It makes you wonder why they give publicity to these things. But anyway, she just did it because she'd had a disagreement with her superior. So she now faces quite a lengthy jail term, I think. All right, so that's the news. Not much of significance. So we will be back again tomorrow, and I say this every time I have a problem with streaming, but I will take a bit more care tomorrow to make sure it goes on properly. Have a good day, everybody. It's still a very nice day here. 15 degrees outside, 7 knots of sou'wester. I don't suppose that does sound very nice to you who are up there in the tropics. But anyway, 1022.9 and steady. We have about 50%, just a bit of actually high cirrus now and a bit of stratus hanging around. Looks pretty decent, but I'm told it's not going to stay that way. But anyway, we'll enjoy it while we've got it, and we'll catch you all again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.